Welcome to Obsessed with Success, starring Russel Morgan.
Welcome back to Obsessed with Success with Russel Morgan. Russell is the founder and CEO of Morgan Legal Group, one of New York's premier estate planning firms. He's also a legal entrepreneur and mentor who helps attorneys build practices that run with clarity, purpose, and strength. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about how lawyers can adapt to change, embrace new technology, and evolve their practices without losing the quality, trust, and human touch that built their success in the first place. Russell, great to see you. Welcome back.
Kevin, great to be here as always.
Great topic, certainly a very topical topic, if you will. Obviously, the law doesn't change overnight, but the way attorneys practice it has evolved quite a bit. How do you keep updating your approach as expectations and tools start to shift?
Tech has changed everything. The whole legal landscape at this point, if you're not adapting, you're dying. And I think a big change and a massive shift took place around COVID. That was the first real lesson in quite a bit where either you adapted or unfortunately you closed your doors. So the more the tech evolves, the more we have to adapt. At Morgan Legal, we're constantly adjusting, whether it's remote work or artificial intelligence that is now creating a buffer between what type of labor is necessary, what kind of staffing is necessary, how it's affecting everything from marketing and advertising. We're constantly evolving our approach in each of our sectors, whether it's management, marketing and advertising, client relations, or product and service delivery. The faster the market adjusts, the faster you have to adapt. And that's something we learned, fortunately, not the hard way, because during COVID, our firm was already equipped to run more or less remotely. So we do our best to stay ahead of the curve, anticipate certain changes. And the same way you would anticipate a market shift if you're a stockbroker, you can anticipate a shift in technology and how it will impact your work as a professional, as an attorney, or as an accountant. So it's more about staying ahead of the changes themselves, keeping yourself informed and understanding that change is imminent. And the more you try to resist, the harder you make it for yourself. And that's something we employ day in and day out. Adaptability rather than resistance.
I think it's very common across all industries to stick with what feels comfortable. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of an approach. I think that especially because not everyone's got the techiness, if you will. I think I just made up a word, but like some people are just really bad at it and they don't want to have to learn a new system and all that. What are some signs though that it's really time to rethink how you work, even if you're trying to resist it?
A key indicator for me is your P&Ls, your profit and loss statement. If you're used to doing certain things a certain way, the way you put it, Kevin, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then if there's a shift in the market or a change, it wouldn't necessarily affect you. But if you're seeing it affect your bottom line, if you're seeing it affect your key performance indicators and your profit and loss statements, it's time to make a change. So being stuck in your ways works until it doesn't. And unfortunately, most people find that out when it stops working, rather than seeing the change, understanding that there's a shift, and adapting as a result. So it's a process that never really stops because it's ever changing. Something that whether you're practicing as a solo or if you're in a L500, 200 person or 300 person firm, you're going to have to adapt to your market. You're going to have to adapt to your clientele. And that's something that you have to address head on.
Looking back at your own practice, was there one improvement that stands out that might have had the biggest impact on your client's experience?
It's feedback. It's always going to be feedback. You can only improve your client experience with constructive feedback. And negative feedback is just as good as positive feedback. You should, in fact, be focusing on your negative feedback because those are your indicators about what may not be working, what may not be optimal in your business or in your practice. So, the only way you can truly perfect or improve your client experience is by taking your client feedback and improving on that negative feedback. We not that we necessarily want negative feedback, but we encourage all feedback from our clients so that we can take any possible areas of improvement and actually improve them based on our clients' experience, not what we think our clients' experience should be.
You bring up a great point. I think a lot of people take negative feedback personally and like as like an attack, but really it's one of your best ways to think of how you can improve and make yourself better and your practice better.
Of course. And the same would go for any business. People are afraid to speak to their clients when they finish. Some, unfortunately, don't even take the time. When someone is on their way out, it's your best way to build your network. It's your best way to create a referral source. It's a best way to create a repeat client. Even someone that's giving you negative feedback. The simple fact that you took the time to understand and evaluate their client experience. And more importantly, if they do become a repeat client, have implemented those changes, speaks volumes. It's a massive improvement, number one. And number two, it's you actually practicing what you preach, that you're not just collecting data for the sake of data, but you're constantly improving your process, your client experience. So by the time that same client that may have not been thrilled about certain parts of their client experience came around the first time, is happy the second time they come around. And that will give them that much more incentive to continue to be a repeat client, give you more feedback that hopefully this time shows the improvement on the processes that may have been lacking at the first go around. And it'll drive more business. A happy client brings more happy clients. Mm-hmm. So your client experience feedback is always going to be your best friend.
Yeah, it's a good thing to think about too, is data doesn't do a whole hell of a lot if you just let it sit there. It's not really going to do you much good. So you may as well do something with it. Obviously, technology gets most of the attention, but are there other internal processes that firms overlook when it comes to staying efficient and organized?
Everything needs attention. You can equate it to a car. If your engine is running, but your transmission is busted, or one of your tires has a hole in it. The car itself is running just fine, but one of your processes are not working well. And what is a business but the whole and sum of many parts? So applying too much effort to one area, whether it's operations or sales and marketing, or versus an overall well-rounded approach, you're always going to continue to have issues. Now, it's not always possible to address all of your issues at the same time, but you can absolutely turn it into something that's a bit more systematic. If you understand your flaws, which is your first most important part, is understanding where are your pain points, where are the issues in your business. Now you can work a process in on how to address them. And this way, it doesn't necessarily have to happen overnight, but department by department, element by element, the foundation of your business overall is getting stronger because you're addressing what might seem like minor issues. But if you start to stack them, and one becomes two, and two becomes four, and so on and so forth, it becomes an impossible feat unless you're addressing them ahead of time or as they become issues, and not just addressing them, but really improving on your processes so that not only does your client experience improve, but you're able to scale, you're able to expand, and you're able to provide the same quality service regardless of your size and how big you get.
Do you have people that tell you they're worried about implementing too much technology because they don't want to lose that personal touch?
Tech is a double-edged sword, Kevin. You and I both know that. And in the world of AI especially, we talk about this all the time, that One of the most aggravating things to me is, picking up the phone and calling a phone carrier and being unable to speak to a person. So there has to be an element of personal touch. Even if your systems in place are automated, or you're incorporating some form of artificial intelligence or some sort of technology, you're still dealing with a person on the other side. Whether you're in retail, commercial, or corporate, it's a people business. Any business is a people business. If you take out the human element to an extent, unless you're selling a product like Amazon, for example, where human element is, let's say, secondary to the product itself. If you're in the services industry, you can automate as much as you want, but your clients are going to want human experience. And if you segregate that to just your VIPs, then you're neglecting your client base. So you have to find a happy medium and a balance where you can implement the technology, because the tech is wonderful. There's so much out there now that is steady developing and growing into real valuable implementation tools that you can use across all of your business sectors. But still make sure that if you're incorporating artificial intelligence, if you're incorporating some sort of technology, that you have someone, a person who's actually managing it on the other side and who's communicating with your clients. You can take away some, if not most, of some of your processes. You cannot take away a human from human experience, at least not with today's tech. Maybe in the future, several years down the line, where we're at that level of advancement, you may be able to replicate the human experience. We're just not there yet. And until you get there, you better make sure that that human experience and that client experience includes a personal human touch.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. You brought up like calling somewhere. I think we all understand that, AI agents are getting more common, and tech is going to be that first line, as long as it's easy for us to get to someone if we need that, right? If you just want an AI agent to tell you the address of your business or the simple stuff and all that kind of stuff, great. But you need to make it easy to get to a person. Some of them make it really hard to ever find a person.
And it almost feels like it's on purpose,
I think it might be.
And I don't want to say that it is. It could be, for all we know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a tactic to keep people away. Maybe it's a tactic to bring costs down on labor. But you're losing clients. Out of some people will just turn around and say, to heck with it. I'm not dealing with this, and just let the problem go. But the others you're going to lose clients. They're going to go to another vendor. They're going to go to someone who can actually give them support when they need support. As minor or major as that problem is, that personal touch makes all the difference.
It does. Absolutely. Obviously a lot of lawyers, probably every lawyer, has limited time. So how do you help them decide what's worth improving now versus what might be able to wait a little longer?
If it's affecting your product and service delivery, if it's affecting the quality of your product, if it's affecting the quality of your service, ultimately it's going to have a trickle down effect on everything else. Because if you're not able to deliver the best product and the best service, you're going to start losing clients. And if you start losing clients, now we have other issues. Now you have issues paying your staff. Now we have issues making sure that your accounts receivable are coming in. We can't grow your marketing and advertising or your public relations. So I would focus my efforts on making sure that your product and service delivery are top notch. Everything else, at least after product and service, you can address after the fact. As long as your delivery, what you actually were hired to do, is at the best quality that it can be, that is where I would prioritize my time above and beyond anything else. That's not to say the other things are not important, but if you can't deliver on what you were contracted or paid to do, what's the purpose of your business?
Yeah, good point. Are there any simple suggestions that you might give lawyers so that they can keep learning and improving without it feeling overwhelming or like a second job?
Understanding your pain points is the first task. Realizing where you have issue and understanding where you may be falling behind. And look, it may be technology, it may be internal processes within the company itself. It could be a combination of the above. Understanding and identifying the problem is number one. After that point, you can essentially tackle it step by step. And the best advice that I've been ever given, and the best advice that I can share with our listeners, is your advisors are your best friends. You can be the best lawyer in the world, but you can only be great at so many things at once. You can only do so many things at once. So once you identify your pain points, once you identify where you need some assistance, instead of it feeling overwhelming, if we have the ability, bring in an expert, bring in a professional, someone that can help guide you and coach you, if not fix the issue itself, on how to address what it is that's in front of you. And look, everybody gets overwhelmed. We are constantly bombarded and overstimulated with information and work, and life is a lot. Let's just leave it at that. It's putting one foot in front of the other. Once you've identified what the issues are, it's slowly addressing it, understanding what we need to unpack, and evolving it step by step. So even if it feels overwhelming, once you start taking a step to address the issues themselves, you'll see that tackling it is not as big of a feat as you think. Identifying the issues is where a lot of people struggle. It's that if it's not broke, don't fix it type of mentality that gets you to a point where it's too late because I haven't been paying attention. I haven't been checking whether or not, is it really broke, or am I hoping that I don't have to fix it? Which one is it? And that's the scariest part, is you get to that point too late and now you can't address the problems. And going back to COVID, that's what happened to a lot of businesses. It wasn't just professional industries, it was all industries. People were not equipped for the change that was coming. And by the time they realized that this was here to stay, there was some period of time in 2020 where people had their doubts and hesitations and thought that life was just going to go back to normal. It wasn't going to be such a massive change in our lives, just overall in life. And that is a key indicator of whether or not you're prepared. If tomorrow there's a major shift in your market, now whether your market is the financial, legal, medical, whatever sector you're in, if technology becomes more prevalent or your client base changes, if there's a dip in the economy, if there's a recession, how are you making sure that you're recession proof? How are you making sure that you can still operate? This is the only way you can stay ahead of the curve, is you have constantly, as a business owner, need to understand worst case scenario tomorrow. If you're not seeing beyond what's happening today and you don't have the foresight, then bring in somebody who does, so that they can help make sure that if the proverbial problem does happen, that you're not only prepared, but you are able to skip and thrive and flourish where others are unfortunately failing.
I don't think I could have said it better than life is a lot, Russell.
It's a lot.
All right. Well, adapting to change isn't about chasing every new idea. It's about staying sharp, efficient, and aligned with your mission. The best firms evolve without losing what makes them exceptional. To learn more about Russell and the Morgan Legal team, visit morganlegalny.com, and you can always find him on social. Russell, remind us where to find you.
Social media at Morgan Legal NY, on our website at morganlegalny.com, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 888-529-1315. Till next time on Obsessed with Success, Kevin, great to see you as always.
Good to see you too. Thanks, Russell.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.